Snale back at it here. Went ahead and sprung for some parts for the 4Runner. We needed to get the lift kit and suspension ready to go because the 80 suspension that's on there is just not going to cut it. Mind you, even though the rig is a flip, I'm not going to sell it with something that I wouldn't be running myself. And what we ended up doing was getting with our friends over at Mike's Custom Toys, and we got the Dobinson kit for the pickup 4Runner. We opted for a little bit heavier duty springs because we're going to be running the winch up front, and why not? And as you can see, these are pretty decent. These are the rears. They've got a couple overloads in there, and depending on how this thing goes, we may end up pulling the overload out because that's typically kind of what goes on. But let's go ahead and open this box up and see what's in there, huh? Ooh, shiny. Feels like U-bolts probably. That is U-bolt. This feels like bushings. These are rear shackles, front shackles, pins, bushings, the other pin. Okay, so instead, if you don't know, the 85 uses this kind of like double bolt deal instead of just a regular bolt, and you can see these are all protected. They've got a nice grease fitting that's recessed down into the hole there, so those are a pretty cool deal. Those are fronts, front shocks. These are rears. So they come with some different bushings just in case. And then the steering damper, so we may have to mount something up for that because of the crossover steering thing. That's going to be different. Okay, so quick inventory of this is, like I said, both sets of springs, shocks, the pins, the shackles. It comes with all new poly bushings for both ends of the springs and the frame. Okay, so you'll get the longer ones for the front shackle frame and an extra pair of shorties for the rear. And then the U-bolt kits, it looks like there's 3 that are the same and 1 for the long side. So basically you have 3 that are the same, and then this long one ends up being different. So what we'll end up doing here is I'm going to go ahead and reposition the jacks, get the jacks repositioned so I can get the front axle out of there, and then we will go ahead and swing that suspension out and get it out of the way.
Hey, what's up? Guess what I got? Now, why don't you come over here and show us everything? You did? Well, good. Well, what else do you want to say there?
Time to put this shit on.
We need to get the front axle out today.
We're going to go ahead and pull out the front suspension today. We get the springs mocked up, and it'll give us an opportunity to figure out how the steering is going to work, where the steering box is going to go in there.
You mean you don't already have a plan?
I mean, I have a plan, but... Would you believe that one size doesn't fit all when you're building a custom vehicle? It's a really crazy concept, but it's lost by many.
So what's the plan?
So front suspension is going to come out now. Depending on your tooling setup, etc., you could just unhook the springs front and rear and just drop it all out. But it may just be easier since we're replacing it all to just slam the U-bolts and get the housing out, and it's just kind of less stuff to hump, as they put it in the automotive field. So just try to make it easier. Sometimes you start doing things that seem like a good idea and it turns into a complete nightmare. So I think we're just going to drop the U-bolts, get the housing out of the way, and then pull the springs out and go from there. Don't let this fall off.
Okay. Just like that. So, just undo this nut on this side and then push it out.
These will have to come out. And then yeah, the nut, and then the same thing on the back. The shackle is one piece. Those pins are pressed in, so you'll have to take off the inside plate, and then it comes off as a unit.
Unit.
Yeah. The new ones are built the same way. It's just kind of done, but that's what it is.
Easy. Let's move them. Whoa, there we go. Man, good thing there's no engine here.
Yeah.
Crusty. God, I spend more time trying to get these stupid nuts out of the socket. All right, so we got the old springs out. You can look at them compared to the new ones. Yeah.
There's a shim up there. Like an 80s style. So that was probably like a 4 or 5 inch lift almost.
And what are we going for now?
Those are a 2-inch lift spring.
That seems kind of weak.
You don't need big tires to be a big stud.
So, no, I've just tried to be a smart ass and told me to go pick out the parts I need. Like I can't tell because I just took them off. He already told you about all this Dobinson stuff. So I got new U-bolts. But the leaf's got to go on first. Oh yeah, and this is neat. I guess it's neat. These two are different because there's a difference between the driver's side and the passenger side on the front leaf springs. But what is it? I don't know what the difference is.
The perch heights are actually different.
The perch heights are different. Okay. And I got a box full of bushings. And I got these pins that go in the front. So this is for the front. This is for the rears. One on each side. And now I've talked as much as I can, procrastinating, and now I have to actually do the work. And we also need the leaf springs themselves, which are conveniently labeled left and right. Oh, man, these are pretty. Did you get this off for me?
I'll put these on him. He didn't. I was feeling weak today.
Oh yeah, I gotta put the bushings on first. Thank you.
So, I don't know if you want to put a little bit of grease on those first.
You don't know or you know? You know I should probably put some grease on those first.
Tiniest bit.
Alright, the big ones go on the back.
The big ones go through the shackle frame.
Alright.
Don't wipe them in, Sam. What's the matter with you?
I don't have a rag.
You're a savage.
I am a savage. Didn't you know that? I keep trying to do this upside down.
Yep.
Alright.
This will be through enough. You can
Close enough?
Close enough. You be able to pull it up on the other side now?
Alright. And then this gets the little bushings?
Yep.
nicely.
And just as a side note here, note that these don't have a bushing in the center. They just make your life a pain in the ass.
It's really not going on there. Why don't you give me the right size socket?
I swear, just fit it to this one. Let me see it. What's the problem?
Use the right tool for the job, Knob. How tight you want me to get it?
Just snug them up.
I probably got them tighter than that.
I mean, you get there, you know, like crush the bushing and shit.
All right, well, that was good. Good enough for now. We'll tighten it up later. Man, that's a little heavy.
You're at the wrong angle.
Huh?
This steel. Push that shit in. Okay, not really.
There we go.
Oh yeah. Okay, just a little quickie right here. We have the housing out of the truck. It's all cleaned up. Just makes it a little bit easier to do these next mods. And it's just a little bit of cutting and grinding. I won't bore you with that, but I will tell you what we're going to do. This is the old torque rod bracket that would have come off the stock solid axle. That's going to kind of be in the way with crossover steering and stuff. Sway bar link mounts will come off. Steering stabilizer link mount will come off. And then I just typically like kind of grind these down a little bit, get some of the dingleberries off from the factory, make it look all shiny and pretty before it goes back in there. And that's that. Alrighty then, I don't know how long that was, but you can see a smoky as shit in here and it was dumb, so that's what that looks like. We got that all cleaned up, looks nice. That could use a little bit more work. And that could use a little more trimming, but I'm out of wheels and I'm tired of this shit, so. I ran out of zip wheels last night, so I had to wait today and get some. Try to order some other parts that showed up wrong, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. But here's what the housing looks like. See, we cleaned this all up. Looks like that wasn't there. And then the rest of the stuff will cover up the paint. I'm gonna get some bolts and stick back here to reinforce those a little bit. Now I'm gonna put the axle housing in there. Alright, so here's basically what she looks like mocked in there. U-bolts. Now we talked about these U-bolts a little bit, and it just doesn't really make sense. I don't know what went on here. I just think we got a mismatch, or maybe there's some weird application where it works that way or whatever, but it should just be two of the same length ones on that side. So I don't know, not a huge deal. We're just going to run with it. I'm going to go ahead and hang the knuckles now, I guess, and get the high steer arms on, and then that'll give us an idea of where the steering is going to line up. And then we'll be able to get the steering box where it goes. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go ahead and put the knuckle on here real quick, and we'll talk about we're going to do a brake upgrade on this car. A couple companies make a adapter plate. Companies make an adapter plate that you can use 96 and up, Tacoma, 4Runner. Anyway, basically everything from 96 and up, you can use this adapter plate and bolt these brakes onto your truck. The benefit of that is you get a larger brake rotor, obviously, a larger brake caliper, obviously. The way the setup goes together, you have a slip-on rotor as opposed to having to pull the whole excuse me, instead of having to pull the whole wheel bearing assembly down to service your rotor or whatever, this just gets rid of all that. It makes servicing it much easier. It's really a huge upgrade because stock solid axle brakes, especially because they're a solid rotor, they fade instantly even when you're not on big tires. So I learned early on in this game that stock solid axle brakes suck, and so the early upgrade obviously was going to the FJ60 Land Cruiser stuff and the later model mini truck calipers, and that was a pretty good upgrade. But again, you still get you still end up getting warped rotors, and then you're back in the same place where you have to service it bolted onto the car. So what we're doing here is this knuckle goes on here, the knuckle bearing goes underneath of there. Of course, I did the other side one-handed and one-footed. Okay, so it basically slides up on there like that. And what we're doing here is, if you can see, the ears go, you want to swap the knuckle side to side, put the ears to the front, they're typically to the rear. This brake caliper, the brake plate will go on here like this, bolts on here, and then like that. The other part of this deal is using this mini truck IFS wheel hub, and what that does is it puts the wheel mating surface 1.5 inches out further on both sides. So basically what you're looking at is from the hub face, where the hub dial will bolt on, to the wheel mating surface. So you're gaining this much width, like I said, about 1.5 inches of width or so. And then you go from having this rotor trapped behind the wheel hub, bolted on. This one's actually bolted and trapped on with the wheel lugs. So just an absolute pain in the butthole. This one, well, the new rotor will just slip over the front of it, and it will work like regular brakes. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the steering arm set up in there, and then that will give me the opportunity to find out where the axle is in proportion to the frame, and then we can work on getting the steering box in the position that it needs to be in. So if you are wondering, these are old All-Pro Off-Road arms. Back when All-Pro Off-Road was actually All-Pro Off-Road. So these used to live on the other truck, and then when I went brain dead behind the wheel and had to buy new axles, I just updated the arms. Another company who I won't mention makes arms that are keyed to the knuckle. So that adds a little bit of strength. It keeps you from shearing these steering arms off. Because if you aren't familiar with Toyota high steer setup, what happens is, allegedly, what happens is the owners don't maintain their trucks. Because of the way these things are on here, what ends up going on, obviously, is this is where you're getting a bunch of stress right here. So this will work and work and work. The nuts back off and it will shear the studs off. You do not want to break a knuckle off out in the middle of bumfuck Egypt. So, like I said, what I did on the other truck was I put keyed arms on there. And then there's also the ARP knuckle studs, which I recommend. And then, of course, copious amounts of Loctite. So all we're doing right here is getting these nuts cleaned up and getting them started. And then basically I'm just going to kind of like mock this stuff together. I haven't decided what we're going to do for axles yet. In all actuality, I really want to do this RCVs, but this has an open front diff, So again, if you're not familiar with the Toyotas, they use these locking cone washers. And what happens is when that presses down, that gap closes, and then that's like a tension lock washer down in that knuckle, right? So obviously when that nut starts loosening up, that's going to want to work itself out of the hole. So you want to make sure that you service these regularly, especially if you're hardcore rock crawling. They will break. It's not a matter of if. One of the dudes I used to know and wheel with, I told him 100 times to tighten these things up. One day he broke it out in the middle of nowhere. I shit you not, as soon as he got home, he turned around and sold that truck because he blamed the truck. Personal responsibility is a thing. And here's my 2 cents for the off-road community. Actually, this is just the motorsports in general. If you can't turn a wrench, you don't belong here. If you don't want to turn a wrench, you don't belong here. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but sorry not sorry. I don't want to work on your shit in the middle of nowhere. Everybody says the off-road community is great, and they are great, and they work on your shit in the middle of nowhere, but I assure you, if your shit broke because you were dumb or lazy, people aren't really happy about it. Alrighty, so that's what that looks like. So the tie rod, you can see, has got a mount on it. Just for the old hydro assist mount. Probably need to update at least some of these ends. That loose all hammered, needs to be dealt with. But at least now, what we can do is figure out where the steering box is going to go. And then that way we can make sure that everything flows the way it's supposed to flow here. So in the parts garage, what we have is here's some fun facts. If you want a serious headache, take one of these boxes all the way apart. So what I've got going on here is, this is a case that I used the power piston and this part of the deal out of, because the one that was in my truck started eating itself, and that was sketchy. So this is another donor box that the guy crashed it and broke off the sector shaft. So I thought I had that piece of sector shaft somewhere, but I don't. Anyway, this is the shaft out of that case. I'm going to put it in that box, and then we'll have a box that works. Okay, well, we're back to this thing. So what's going on here is, see how there's 3 gear teeth right there? There's 3 slots. This has got 4 slots. So I'm not sure exactly. I don't know why these parts aren't matching. And so yeah, I have to go back and do something else now. Woo!
That wraps up another episode of Snale Racing. Coming soon, part 2. The rear axle housing isn't coming off without the zip wheel. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Peace.